Hi guys, welcome to my channel. So on today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make these beautiful dresses, and in the these are actually classwork from our students, our beginners class. So I'm going to show you a very simple and easy way of making this kimono jacket. So let's quickly get started. The first thing you do if you want to make a kimono jacket is to establish your lines. Just mark out your horizontal lines. For me, my first horizontal line is my neckline. So I'm drafting the pattern for the front and the back together. So we mark our neckline, we go ahead and mark our shoulder line. This is a kimono jacket, like I said, and we're drafting the front and the back together. So with this, you already have a basic, very basic knowledge of blouse making. So this shouldn't be much of an issue. So neckline, shoulder line. The shoulder line comes 1 inch below the neckline. Then the chest line, I use 6 or 7 inches for the chest line. Then the armhole, normally I do high waist divided by 2, high waist position divided by 2. So if my high waist position is 17, I'll divide by 2. It will give me 8.5. So from here to here we're going to have 8.5, and we just mark it. Then you get the bust position. I'm not too interested in the bust position really, so you can just mark the bust position anyhow you want it. Then the next thing you're going to do is that you're going to mark the length of your kimono, the length of your kimono jacket. So if I want to use let me say a contrast color of fabric to hem the edges, I'll minus that width. But for now, let me just use a normal length. Okay, for now I'll just use a normal length. So this is the full length, and then this below we can just come down by 1.5 inches or 2 inches, and that is the hem line. So I'm going to treat this edge as a folded edge. I'm going to treat it as a folded edge for the center front CF, that's center front CB. So it's also our center front, it's also our center back. So I'm going to mark a neck width, any neck width of my choice. I could just use 3 inches as my neck width. So I'll mark the neck width. Then for the neck depth of the back, we could use 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches neck depth, back neck depth, 3 inches neck width. Okay, so that's the neck width for both front and the back. So you mark your normal shoulder, put your normal shoulder measurement. You get to the chest line, you can just mark your normal shoulder still, because we're going to make alterations to this one for the front. So this is going to be shoulder divided by 2 on this line, shoulder divided by 2. You come here and mark shoulder divided by 2. You come to the armhole line, you still mark shoulder divided by 2. After you mark it, you come again and mark your round bust divided by 4. Just typical blouse stuff. So you now connect it together. So I'm using the round bust measurement, assuming my round bust is the biggest measurement. But if your hip is the biggest measurement, you can now do round hip divided by 4. Round hip divided by 4 on this your armhole, because I want to have the same measurement all through. I don't want to have a flare effect. I don't want to start adding something when I get towards the hip. I just want to use the same measurement. That was how this other kimonos you see on this page were achieved. So let me assume that the hip is bigger, so I'll just mark round hip divided by 4. Then if I want to add an extra ease, I can add ease of, you can add ease of 0.5 inches, 1 inch, 2, like that, depending on how big you want it to be. You can now add extra ease. Then you now add your sewing allowance of, let me do 1 inch for now because of weaving and all that. So now this is what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and drag this line all the way down, the same measurement you have here. To avoid having something that is slanted, make sure you measure from here to here, the total, both the ease, the sewing allowance, mark it on this other point, at this other point. So now let's say you have your back that has a high neck. So if you want to cut your back, you just go ahead and use this full pattern and cut your back. Then if you want to cut your front, now let me use my red marker to make alterations. If you want to cut your front, what you have here now is shoulder divided by 2 minus 0.5, just like we do for our basic blouse. So you have a mild curve on this part, and every other thing remains the same. Then apart from that, on the waistline now, you're going to measure the waistline. Let me assume that this is our high waistline, okay? If this is our high waist, now, if this is our high waistline, I'm going to connect from this neck now. I'm going to connect from this neck. It's going to be like a V that will stop at the high waist. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to use a tracing wheel to trace out the front. For now, I'm just going to use a tracing wheel to trace out the front. So this is a tracing wheel. So, and my front is the one that has something like a V neck. So you just trace and you turn around, you trace. So tracing wheels are basically used to transfer patterns from one pattern to the other. Okay, so sorry, I'm copying the front pattern. So since I'm copying the front pattern, I'm going to trace out the one that has red, the one with the red marking. Okay, so I've transferred the pattern now. I'm just going to use the marker to reinforce the markings, and I'll have it like this. So the front is going to be cut in pieces. In pieces. You're not interested in folding it. It's going to be cut in pieces. So I'll cut times 2 of this. Times 2. Times 2 of the main fabric. So, and this is the front pattern. So after cutting times 2 of the main fabric, the back, I don't need to do anything special to the back. I'll just go ahead and cut out the back directly from here. So if you're new to this channel, this is just about the perfect time to subscribe, and you click on the notification bell so that you see my notification once I make a new video post. On this channel, I share very interesting tips on how to draft patterns, how to sew, and how to run a successful fashion business. So you can connect with us on our other social media platform. Check the links in the description box below to connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and other platforms. Okay, so this is our front piece, and we're going to have 2 of it on the main fabric. Then we are also going to have the back piece. I'm cutting the shoulder that was not reduced. That's the one that is not the red one, the blue one. So I would actually cut them on the fabric so that you would see them clearer. This is the back. The back is on fold because there is no zipper at the back. There's really no reason why the back shouldn't be on a fold. So now we're going to stitch it together. So I made some mistakes while cutting, so that's why it's as if one side is bigger than the other. But normally when you cut your fabric and when you're stitching it, the shoulder to shoulder should align as far as it's the same measurements you used in cutting it. So I'm going to join it together. So you just join it together on your fabric using your 1/2 inch seam allowance. So right now I'm not working on a sewing machine, but I'm just demonstrating this to you, and I believe you will be able to understand it and do it by yourself when you eventually get to a sewing machine. Okay, so we join the shoulders together, and after we join the shoulders together, you see all those black things, like those contrast color of fabrics that the students used in front. Those are the ones that we're going to cut next. So what you do now is that now that you've joined the two together, back, and you join the front, you're going to use your measuring tape and measure from the edge. You're going to measure from one end to the other. When it gets to the slanting, just go ahead and slant it, and just keep measuring. Just keep measuring and you get to the end. So I have about 42.5 here. So I'm going to cut another pattern paper that is 42.5. That's in your own case now, you're going to cut a fabric, not pattern paper. The length of my pattern paper will be 42.5 inches, or let me just make it 43. I'm going to make it 43 inches. If it's too short, like this one now is too short, this is about 25, 29.5. I'm going to add something to it, but let me just show you a sample of it. My width is 2 inches, 2 inches width. The width of the contrast fabric I'll place in front, I'll use 2 inches. So you multiply the width times 2, 2 times 2, whatever you get, you add 1 to it. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 plus 1, so it will give us a total of 5. So what I'm going to cut now will just be, basically I'm going to cut, I'll be cutting 42.5 inches by 5 inches. I hope you understand. So if you have any questions, just drop it in the comment section and I'll be sure to respond. So we're going to work with, in this case, we're going to be working with 5 cm, and we're going to work with 45 cm by, let me make it 43 just to be on a safer side. 43 by 5 cm. So you make sure you measure and mark all these things very well. So if you want to add medium gum stay to give strength to what you're working on, you can still add medium gum stay and that will work just fine. But if you don't want to add, just make sure you iron very well. And yes, there is no we don't do direct ironing in ready to wear. Sometimes the iron has a way of dropping marks on it and it doesn't look nice. Okay, so we're going to fold it. The width, whatever width it is you cut, you just fold it. I usually don't like using anything more than 2 because it gives me something that is too big to handle. I mean 2 inches on a real fabric. So please, for the sake of this tutorial, because this is too big for this, I'll just slim it down. But when you're working on a real fabric, just use 2 inches. So I'll just slim this one down a bit because of this tutorial. So now that I'm done with this, I want to show you the contrast, the effect of the contrast. So because I want a contrasting color of fabric, I'll just use a marker to mark it out, and then okay, so we're gradually getting done. So next thing we'll do is that we'll place it this way. Okay, let me still mark here. Okay, so when you want to stitch, you just place it this way and you start stitching. So I could just use my pin to hold it together. Guys, so we're just about done with this part. I mean, attaching the contrast color of fabric, the contrast really makes the whole thing pop. So now that we are done joining this, you can take it to a serger, that's a weaving machine. They weave everything through the insides, the outsides, and all that. Then you can join front and back together using your allotted sewing allowance. After you're done joining the left and the right together, you now join. After joining left and right together, you can now join your sleeve. Okay, so after joining it, this is how it's going to be. No big deal with this one now. So this is how it's going to be for the main body. Then you've already weaved it down, so you can now go ahead and fold it and run a stitch all through using the hem allowance allotted, and now it's done. So that's a beautiful look. so you can see how my students work on an actual fabric float. So next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to draft pattern for the sleeve. So I have a tutorial on how to make basic sleeves. So just follow up my tutorial on how to make basic sleeve and then work with it. So assuming the full length, that's the actual length of the sleeve. Assuming the actual length of the sleeve was 15 inches, you're not going to use 15 inches though. You're going to subtract 2 inches from that 15. So so you can just end up using 13. Okay, we had 15, so now you can end up using 13 instead of 15. So you can cancel out this one, or you can make it 13.5 inches so that you can use the half inch to join the contrast color of fabric. So we're going to use my basic sleeve making pattern. I'll just drop the link in the description box so that you can use it to draft your basic sleeve block. So just follow the link, draft your basic sleeve block, and after you're done drafting your basic sleeve block, measure the armhole. This is the armhole. Just go ahead and measure the armhole. Make sure it rhymes with this one. Like this is half of the total armhole. So just make sure that this part now is like half of this. So when you're done with that, you can now decide how you want your sleeve to be. Assuming our sleeve, let's say our armhole stops here, then you can measure your round wrist. Just check out what you want. If I want to have a flare effect, I can just give it a flare effect here, by giving it a slant on this point, and it comes out nice. If your full length, like if the sleeve stops here, you don't want it to just be straight, you can decide to add an extra 1 to 2 inches extra. Don't just give it a slant haphazardly. All right, so of course you already have your sewing allowance. You can just add your sewing allowance and all that. So let's get to work and reconnect. So by the time, let me cut this on fold. By the time I'm done cutting on fold, I'm going to run the contrast fabric on the tips so that you can see how it also looks. So you just go ahead and attach your contrast color of fabric to the edge. That's the same way you cut the other one. Measure the length from end to end. Then you now cut the width using 5 inches. I use 5 inches because I use a width of 2 inches. I feel 2 inches looks good, so I use width of 2 inches. So whatever width you're using, multiply by 2 and add 1 inch to whatever it is you have as your result. So after doing this, we just go ahead and attach it to to the main piece. So now we cut off here. Weaving is very important since this is ready to wear and you're not fixing lining on your work. So weaving is very important. So this is the contrast color of fabric. You now sew it together using half an inch. And guys, we are done with this tutorial video. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe to the channel and see you in the next training video. So to order this book, click on the link in the subscription button in the description button, or you just contact the number on the screen. Bye.